actually, we haven't made many changes. We're still continuing to update the front of the building. So this is what the state of the current design is. And this is the front entranceway. So as students come into the building, you know, there's a little bit of cover over them. And then this is the co-drive rendering that we had shown last time. So we're here to talk about budget, and Andre is here to answer any questions as well. So just to cut to the chase, the bottom number in red that you're looking at is currently the budget stands at $49,249,207. We are continuing in the process of going through all of the line items with Andre in terms of where's the money getting spent, everything from concrete to furniture and equipment. And so how that breaks down currently is the building is a little bit larger than what we had been talking about. It's 143,459 square feet. Currently the site work is $5,546,865, and obviously that includes everything that we've talked about to date in terms of the parking and the drives and the turf field and such. The new school construction estimate is everything that you've seen to date, and that stands at $36,005,096. The construction contingency in the DD budget, DD stands for design development because we're in that design development stage, which means we're continuing to develop the design. So we've carried a pretty hefty contingency of $1,750,000. And then in addition to that, there's the CM fees of $971,383.
That's construction management fee, right?
Construction management fee, sorry, yes. Yep, that's Andre's fees for the 3 years or 4 years. From basically when he was hired to the building is completely done. So the construction budget as it stands right now is $44,273,344. And that's all of the things that we just talked about. The soft costs, which are everything from the A&E fees, the permitting that goes on, the furniture, the equipment, the IT, the AV, the specialty consultants, food service, things like that. That adds up to $4,975,832, which brings us to that total project budget of $49,249,207. The last slide that we have is we have been looking at add alternates and deduct alternates. Just to start quickly with the deduct alternate down below, we've done some flow tests on the water lines in the streets around the building site, and we are incredibly close to not needing a fire pump, which means we're incredibly close to needing a fire pump. So right now, within that number that we just talked about, total project budget, we have included a fire pump. And the thinking there is that once we start construction and we get the new lines in, which will change the volume of the water, if we don't need the fire pump, we'll be able to deduct it out of the project. And that'll go back into your contingency.
What the heck is a fire pump?
So a fire pump is, there's a certain amount of pressure in the lines, and there's a certain amount of volume of water. There's two kinds of pressure. The first, when you open up the hydrant, it comes out really fast, and then it kind of ends up with your residual constant pressure, if you will, and there's also a volume of water. How we measure that is we have a tall building, so the most remote sprinkler head from where the water comes in the building, so the highest and furthest away, that has to have a certain pressure, whether it's 250 PSI or 65 PSI, I'm not quite sure. But at that most remote head, that tells you whether or not you have to boost the water pressure and volume in the building or whether it's okay. So we're right there when we do all the calculations. So we've included the fire pump, and we also have a generator on the site for all the emergency systems and such. So the fire pump would be connected to the generator as well. And then the add alternates, we've shown you in some of the renderings some exterior solar shades, but we also have interior shades. We'd rather have the exterior ones so that the teachers don't pull the shades. when there's glare, things like that. In other words, control it without having to waste time putting shades up and down. So we have that, the upgrade to a generator. So there's been a long discussion. Typically, generators are done for all of your emergency systems, emergency lighting, card access, security system, enough heat, freeze protection to keep the building from freezing. That's the generator we have right now, which is 300 kW. And so to upgrade that so that the entire building can operate during a power outage as if there's nothing wrong is $131,445, and that increases the generator size to 800 kilowatt. So it goes from 3 to 8 with that number. Currently,
Excuse me, can you tell me what the number for the 3 is again, please?
it's $150,000.
And so the 131 would be additional?
It's $125,000.
And the 131 would be additional?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. So right now, in the total project budget, we have $125,000 for a 300 kilowatt generator.
Got it.
To increase that, it's the $131,445. Right now, we have approximately 900 seats in the auditorium. We've been talking about 900 or more seats, so to put in additional seating to get to 1,000, for instance, would be $133,730. We've shown you sort of, as you come in the front door, we have the lockdown vestibule and then the lockdown lobby. So essentially, you have 4 rows of lockable doors as you sequence through the building. So for the time being, we're identifying that one of those sets of doors, which is that third door in the vestibule, is $33,534. And that is for the framing itself, the glass, the doors, and also the card readers, which work on those doors. So that's sort of all in that access control.
Ron, excuse me, can I just ask a question? On the generator, the upgrade, is that a replacement? Is that an actual upgrade to the existing generator?
No, they'd both be new. So right now, the $125,000 is for a new 300 kilowatt generator.
So this would be in addition to that? To
Yeah, we would actually
boost the
not do the 300 kW generator. We would just get an 800 kilowatt generator.
And the current generator, which is, am I remembering correctly, that's relatively new?
No, it was
That
moved
goes
in
to the-
from the high school. The
Oh,
one
I
at the
see.
high school is new. So over the course of the last 6 years, Dan, we've put in generators at all the buildings that make them completely operational. It's not just a safety generator. If something goes on off at Mastway in terms of power, generator takes over, the whole building is operational. So in this scenario, we would be in an emergency setting, but if we want the whole building to be operational, as we do at the high school and the 2 elementaries and the current middle school, it would add $133,700.
So the generator,
$131,445.
the generator currently at the middle school is our oldest generator, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So then, what we had in the original budget was a number specifically for, and this is part of the soft costs, furniture and equipment, IT, and AV. We have been getting estimates, just as we're estimating the building. We're going back and talking to furniture vendors, IT and AV vendors, and they believe that, depending on today's pricing and without having a crystal ball, that essentially $210,000 may or may not be needed. And so what we wanted to do is show that as an ad alternate. So, and that would be something that we would place aside, if you will, because that takes place almost at the end of the project. The whole building will be basically constructed when we move in the furniture and the IT and the AV, so we'll know better then what those prices are. So we wanted to have that as an ad alternate as well, and that $210,000, in case, I'm sure you've all heard about the tariffs in China, and that's really affecting the furniture industry. Even though a lot of that stuff is assembled in the US, a lot of the components come from overseas. And the same thing with AT and AV, that technology is constantly changing. And it's pretty far out to budget that, yep.
So does the the building as it is now, does it include those solar panels over, like, we talked about having the buses, like, have like a, covering and solar panels on that? Is that included at this time?
So that's a power purchase agreement
Oh,
with
okay.
someone like Revision Energy.
Okay.
And the school district has been working with them, and we've been working with them. And so our design accommodates all of that.
Okay,
So what they would do is enter in an agreement with the school, and they would actually build the structures to hold up the solar panels over the buses, and they would include the ballasted systems that go on the roof
okay.
that we've talked about.
So that's like a totally separate,
It's a total, yeah, it's a
Totally
totally
separate.
separate
Okay.
budget that it would be an agreement that most schools enter into, and I think you've done this before
Yeah,
with
we have.
Revision Energy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that's pretty much where we are. We just wanted to give an update. I know that Andre is coming to the board in November with the full GMP, but we wanted to just sort of let you know where we're at currently, that we're continuing to develop the design and develop the budget numbers as we're designing Andre's estimating with his team.
So we'll have the guaranteed maximum price to you on November 20th.
I'm sorry, I was like, I knew I had another question. Can you I don't understand the solar shading, like, so internal shades are just your typical shades that you pull down. So what's the external solar shades? What's that?
So if you're looking at the diagram, you see the high windows to the classrooms? They look like they have a little visor
Yep.
out in front of those windows. If that were to be installed, so obviously you have these things on the outside of your building, right? So there's an added cost to that, which is a lot more than just a shade, you can imagine. But what that does is it allows you not to have to pull the shade in order to block the glare. So when the sunlight is coming down, it hits the solar shade and bounces that light up into the room. And the glare from the sun that would normally come in. So you have this on the south side and the east side of the building.
Okay.
We don't have any on the northwestern or the northeastern side of the building.
We
So it
put them
doesn't-
in the Massway project, Denise, in the front when you're walking towards the entry to the Massway project there on the office windows because of the very issue of lighting.
So it doesn't block the sunlight from coming in,
No.
it just diverts it so it's not glare?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, got
Yep.
it.
And you can do this a couple of different ways. So one is to have the shades outside, the shading outside the building. Another one is called a solar shelf or a sun shelf that's actually inside the building. So as the sun, as the angle of the sun comes in, it bounces off that and cuts down some of the glare. The nice thing about the outside is it cuts down more of the glare than the internal light shelf does.
Yeah. It's not a question, just in terms of an observation. I guess I'm looking at, in terms of costs, if there's an area that we need to kind of save a little bit on. I guess I'm feeling that a 900-seat auditorium is probably adequate, is just kind of my opinion. I know that still discussion, but in terms of, if we need to look at places where we might need to cut back a little bit because something else comes up higher, to me, that would be
Yeah.
something that could be, I feel like 900 would be adequate, I guess.
Thank you for that, Denise. So, what Ron is doing tonight in the short time he's presenting was a 2.5-hour line-by-line analysis with Tom and Brian and the committee going through and trying to keep the number as true to 49 million as we've been saying. So this is a work in progress, and we'll continue to refine, because when we get out to November 20th and Andre is standing in front of you and he says the guaranteed maximum price is X, he's locked and loaded at that point, and so he wants to make sure he's comfortable with the number that we get. So we're at the stage where we're constantly refining these numbers now.
Yeah, so I guess for those of us who aren't on the committee, just a kind of an observation in terms of, that's just my opinion is that might be a good place to kind of look at some savings.
Okay.
Ron, one of the things that kind of pleasantly surprised us when we talked on Monday was that we could actually earn interest when we put the bond into,
Right.
because we're not going to spend it all at once, and so that interest is accounted for in this number, right?
Yes. Yep, so we have a very conservative interest number, so you're not a tax-paying entity. So almost every project we work on, you're gonna sell the bonds, they give you a big chunk of money, right? So you put that money in an interest-bearing account, and that's the account that you use to pay for the construction as it goes. Well, over time, you're gonna build up some interest. And in order to stay out of trouble with the IRS, as somebody who's making interest as a non-tax-paying entity, they usually put in the ballot that it's the bond plus the interest that'll be spent to build and equip the building. And so that's, that's why we wanted to make sure when we're going through this, we don't want to get to the end of the job and have a few $100,000 left over because it hasn't been expended. So we're actually, making sure that that's part of this. Yep.
I happened to be at a law conference today and asked bond counsel that very question, Denise, and, and I texted Sue the minute I heard, because Sue is working with bond counsel. When it's timely, we'll present a warrant to the board that will be developed by bond attorneys. And we want to make sure that the language is such that it provides maximum flexibility to the school board to expend the funds. And so it was an interesting conversation, and I instantly was texting Sue through the whole meeting saying, who is it? What are we doing? So it has to be incorporated into the warrant.
Questions? Thank you. Things are right on track. it looks
Thank you
like.
very much again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Andre, don't speak so much next time.
I can go over, if you have time, the process that's going to happen in the next 6 months.
I think the board would be interested in that, Andre.
Okay.
I was teasing you, but I didn't realize that you were going to speak. Sorry.
Well, we're a tag team. Good evening, everybody. So just to kind of help you understand the process as it's been going forward over the last half of the year, we have been working with the architects and the building committee to develop plans. And every time a plan is put together, we try to develop a quick budget for it and kind of keep things on track. Right now, this budget is based on maybe 18 pages of blueprints. And I don't know, ultimately, there probably will be 300 for the project. So in this, on Friday or Monday, we will be getting upwards of 100 plus blueprints. That will be sufficient to be able to send out to various subcontractors and say, okay, take a good hard look at this, update the budget that we have, and with those numbers, we'll be able to come back to you and say, here is our guaranteed maximum price. And there will still be a hefty contingency in that, because the next process will be to have the voters approve it. And if that happens, then we will go out to bid for every part of the project. So at that time, we will get committed numbers, write subcontracts, and begin construction. So when that happens, we'll have the full set of plans to be able to do that. So this is kind of the process that we're following. And so far, I think it's gone really well. We've gotten great feedback from the building committee, and the architects have been great to work with. So we're looking forward to hopefully moving forward in March. Any questions?
I had a question like, okay, November, we get the fixed number. And this, what if you went out and then you say, okay, and you say this is what it's going to cost for, say, furniture? What if you go out then and later on and you can't get that the amount, the price goes up? How does that, but you've already had a
Well, that's
fixed.
why we have that contingency fund.
Okay.
The 1.75 million that's built into the budget is to anticipate if something goes awry when you actually go out to bid.
Yeah, and there is absolutely no doubt that that's going to happen in something or other, because
Yeah.
we cannot, in November, make a commitment to anyone, so they in turn can't go out and buy the materials and lock them in. So we have to develop the budget based on, anticipating that, because I can never come back to a client and say, we need more money. So we have to make sure that we're all protected.
Andre, can
in
you
that
speak to
process.
us, to the board, because you talked to the budget committee about why you'd be so confident when you hit November and you haven't put it all out to bid yet? What process do you go through to internally validate you're in the right place?
So up to this point, what we've been doing is, as we get plans and information is developed, we have done material takeoffs. And based on our experience with other projects, we know that this particular carpet will go down for this much a square foot. Steel will be erected for so many dollars a square foot, things like that. Mechanical systems, we've analyzed all these different mechanical systems until settling with the committee and the architects and engineers on the one that we think will be best for the school. So each time that that's been done, we've had, let's say, a mechanical contractor who has looked at this. It's not been competitively bid yet, but he's been, he has a great experience. He's done 3 geothermal systems just like the one we've chosen. So he's able to provide quite good numbers. But we'll still bid this, and hopefully, come bid time, we'll get better numbers. In some cases, there may be a giant price increase on steel or something, but hopefully the general bidding will come in lower. So when that process happens, we'll have given you and signed a guaranteed maximum price contract. But once we get all the bid numbers, we will take them, put them into the same spreadsheet that we had presented on Monday to the building committee, and be able to say, all right, here are the actual bids, and the building committee will have a part in choosing all of the subcontractors and suppliers. We'll provide lists. Decisions will be based on, that they're able to do the project, their competitiveness on the bid, and maybe relationships that the school already has with some of them. So as a team, we will select the best people qualified to do the project. And then all of the money that's left, if we're fortunate enough to come in under budget, that money will go into the contingency. And that contingency, we're looking at some of the alternates. We will try to start picking up those alternates with money that is left over. So at all times, we have to stay under the GMP. But hopefully, we'll be able to accomplish some of these additional alternates as we move forward.
Denise?
Just thought of another question in terms of going back to the solar panels. So separate, we have to work out something with revision.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if it's too expensive, we can't do it? I mean, the building isn't designed to have, like, we're designed in such a way that we're sort of counting on having solar as,
Right.
So how would that work if it turns out that it's too expensive for?
Well, it would become part of the capital budget, and, you prioritize with Jim, Sue, and I in terms of what issues are more important than others, just like we do every single year. Mm-hmm. The most important thing to remember is, as Ron's designing the building, for example, on the generator, he's designed it to take the 800 kilowatt generator. He's designed it to hold the solar panels on the roof. He's designed it as if those things are going to be accomplished. The more rigorous 2-story structure outside the art room and the STEM room, so it could be added on to in the future. So he's designing it with the idea that those things will ultimately happen. Even if they don't happen in the construct of the building project, they'll be able to occur based on decisions the board makes as we build capital budgets in the future. So it's going to be future ready. If we can't do it in one year, we'll be able to do it in future years.
Would we have enough energy, if we say we couldn't do the solar panels right away, is there enough alternative energy sources to be able to power the building, I guess is my question?
Yes. So
Okay.
the solar panels is a supplement to hot water and what other features, Ron? Hot water and?
Yeah, so the geothermal system is going in. That's all part of the project. Solar hot water is also part of the project. We have condensing boilers so that for freeze protection and so that we don't have to spend a lot of energy with heat pumps.
Okay.
For the hot water systems, because that takes an incredible amount of energy. We are also working with, not only are we working with Revision Energy, but and Jim has been leading the charge with Sue, with Unitil and Eversource. And so, they are also right now working with a company called DMI Inc., Demand Management Institute Inc., out of I think they're in Waltham, Massachusetts. And they're putting together energy models to, again, assist what we're doing to drive down the energy use of the building.
Right. And the envelope itself, Denise, is being done in such a way that it will be also ready for any supplemental energy sources, solar, et cetera. So the places where we're putting our money are in that superstructure of that building to make sure it's always ready, even if we're not financially, we would be in the future.
Michael?
I think we should take a close look at rolling the solar in with the project, even if it increases the total amount that we have to bond. Given the types of interest rates we're looking at, and given the way that a power purchase agreement is structured, I think we would probably find that we would actually, it would save more than the bond payment would be on that incremental cost to go ahead and do it upfront, even if the district had to own it directly.
All right. Well, you could certainly look at that and put that in front of you for consideration, Michael. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for having us.